Wow. So that's terrifying. So apparently, so right now we are live on the internet. So who's watching the stream? Daz is watching the stream. There is one person watching the stream. So hi everyone. Thanks so much for coming to Jigsaw and London Apple Admins. As ever, we've started a bit late because there's beer and pizza and we're super organized. So first up, I think we've got Liam from Jigsaw who's going to talk all things Pam. And no pressure, we'll just get back on time.
Cheers, speaking on. I'm going to go and quick discussion. Oh. Did drinks keep me going? Continue to talk amongst yourselves for a minute. I'll just plug in. Yeah. Right, make noise, everyone. Yeah. It's not bad. Should do that. Right, we can see. We can see. Got to do the important thing first and open the drink. So continue to talk amongst yourself. Also, just have a sip of this. Right. Clearly, that's going to fall whilst I'm talking, and it's going to be amazing to have on camera. So Daz can sell it to you've been framed if it's still going on or something. Oh. Why is that open on the same of every window? Right, good. Good, we can start. Cool. Right. Same as what Steve said. So yeah, thanks for everyone for being patient, but we're all good to get started. I'll talk as quick as I can through mine, and then get to the better presentations because mine's awful. No, I'm joking. It'll be all right. I'd like to just echo and just say thank you for coming out into the cold to visit the office. This is the first one we've done in this office. I think Jigsaw haven't hosted one for a couple of years now, so it's good to see some familiar faces, see everyone again, and sort of offer the space up to Daz and the London Apple Admins crew. So yeah, obviously, round of applause for those guys for organising all this stuff because it's great to have everyone together as well. Maybe the last one of the year, so it's good to get that out. Everyone may have noticed a flyer on the seats. That is for Mac AD for next year. Wanted to give everyone a little bit of something to take away. Absolutely no pressure in whatsoever. There's a bit of a discount to attend Mac AD or Macaduck, let's call it. So if you need help convincing your businesses on why you should go to a UK Apple conference and stuff like that, hopefully it helps. Again, there's no pressure with that or anything like that. But if it does help you convince your businesses and convince your manager and convince your boss that you should go, it's absolutely the place to be next May. Down in Brighton. Yeah, hopefully that helps. Cool. Can jump in. So got navigating Pam. And there is Pam, for everyone that doesn't know. I was going to start with a really controversial opinion, and maybe one of many controversial opinions throughout this, and say the US office is better than the UK one. Just put it out there, just to see where I stand. I did say that to Mark the other day, and I think he was about to give me my P45. So we'll see how today goes as well. I've kind of spent quite a bit of my time recently talking about PAM. I'm assuming everybody knows PAM stands for Privileged Access Management. Through obviously Jigsaw, as we kind of built our own solution. This isn't to talk about that. This is to talk about it in a bit more of a general term. So what I thought might be interesting, and hopefully interesting to some people, is to talk a little bit about the who, what, why, when, and how. Which I put together the slides and realised that's what I did. So I thought I'd put that there because it makes even better sense with it there. And I've cheated on one of them anyway, so it's fine. Another office beam. There you go. The second one of 3. It's not too many. It's not just full of office memes. So wanted to kind of explain what privileged access management was. And it's actually a little bit more difficult than you think. If you Google what privileged access management is, you end up on lots of different sites that offer lots of different versions of privileged access management. So whether it's for a solution for Mac, whether it's a solution for Office 365, whether it's a solution for Google, whether it's a solution for Okta. They all kind of talk about privileged access management in slightly different ways that suit them. So what I tried to do really is kind of bring everything together, because privileged access management isn't just one thing. It's not just a thing that we need to focus on for our end user Mac devices. It's actually a thing that we need to think about when we are accessing our systems and are managing those systems as well. So like I said, if you think about Office 365, having global admin access to Office 365 24/7 is a really bad thing to do. And the same as Okta, and maybe even you can extend that use case to things like MDM as well. There's a lot of power in those systems that we might have full admin access on. So it's kind of important to think about it. Made a stupid meme as well. It's not even funny, but you kind of get the idea. I think a lot of us kind of assume, especially as Mac admins, we kind of assume privileged access management as that kind of end user device sort of process, but actually trying to make everyone kind of think about it a little bit more holistically and actually go, well, yeah, actually I've got full admin access 24/7 to a lot of these systems. Like, there's a lot of risk involved there. And, kind of to explain that a little bit further, there's a bit of an interesting analogy. You said it right. I was worried about saying that word because every time I say analogy, I'm always like, but I did it. It's fine. And the interesting way to think about privileged access management is well to building access and lots of different buildings. If I've got keys, if I've got access to lots of different buildings within a community, I shouldn't really have access to all those buildings 24/7. I can go into a building, I can do whatever I want, leave, go to another building, go and do what I want. There's a bit of a risk involved there. I need to be able to get into those buildings in a controlled manner, maybe be monitored in terms of what I'm doing in those situations as well. So maybe if you think about privileged access management, it can go beyond IT systems and actually how we access buildings as well. But I'm not going to talk about that because building access is very boring. So when we get into a little bit of the why, I'm going to have a little bit of sip from my drink. So why do we do it? Quite liked this picture that I Googled and found, so I've stolen it. But kind of the main one really, mitigate human error. I say that as the main one because how many people here can probably go into work tomorrow? You've had a couple of drinks, you might log into Jamf, you might log into Office 365, you might go to make a change that you've maybe not thought 100% about, and you might accidentally make a change or might accidentally do something that you didn't intend to do. And having an extra step where you sort of requesting an extra admin privileges or extra privileges to do whatever you need to do can actually help, the extra 10 seconds of thinking time, the extra 20 seconds of thinking time. I've got to type out why I need that access, to make you start to think about what it is you're doing and think about that extra, that extra 10 seconds can be a lot when you think about making these changes and having that sort of second thought about what you're doing. Reducing the attack surface. If I've got admin access again to my device 24/7, I've got access to Office 365 24/7, I am a target. I'm the perfect target. I want to be, people out there will probably look and go, he's an IT admin, he's probably got access to everything. They probably don't buy any privileged access management. They're probably not doing all these different things. So we'll target that person and try and get their credentials, target you for phishing and stuff like that. So you start to think about, and especially once, say if I've got into your account as well, I can just hop from one account to the other, one system to the other, and carry on. Compliance. So compliance is an important one. And I think a lot of us see that a lot more now. So things around, if your business has gone for things like Cyber Essentials Plus, right? So Cyber Essentials Plus dictates that you've got to do some of this. You can't have full admin access with your primary account to your systems or on device or anything like that. So it starts to bring in this into play for your organization and actually how you think about, again, how you manage all those systems sort of moving forwards. So obviously your InfoSec teams will come with you with the compliance and the security teams will come with you with the compliance. So it's a nice way to sort of demonstrate that. And we want to make it productive, right? So if we implement these systems, we're not implementing them as a blocker. We want people to do their jobs. We just want to do them in a nice controlled manner that we feel where people are doing it nice and safely. As this is a Mac admins event, right? So I'm going to focus on that because that makes absolutely more sense. 10p for who can pick what is different on this slide than the title. Winner. You can have an extra slice of pizza. I said 10p, but I haven't got that. No one carries cash. Thought I could sneak that in. So privileged access management for Mac. And you think, why? Well, actually, it's all the same reasons. If you're doing it for things around Office 365, you're doing it for, I don't know, networking systems, you're doing it for Okta, you're doing it for Google, you're doing it for everything else. The reasons are all the same. So you can start to think about it in the same way. And then it's a lot easier to explain to users. It's a lot easier to explain around the business in terms of why it is that you should do it. It's not really a different process. If I've got admin access on my Mac, I can still do things that maybe I shouldn't do. My users can tinker with things maybe they shouldn't be tinkering with. They might be installing things that they shouldn't be installing. So it's important to kind of, get a handle on that. And from a compliance perspective, we kind of spoke about Cyber Essentials Plus, stuff like that as well. As these compliance standards become a lot more standard for our businesses, as the government start to dictate that a certain organization in a certain industry needs those, we need to be able to demonstrate that and show that we're kind of moving forward with that as well. And like I said, we kind of think of that attack surface. If my users have admin access all the time, I might be up for being targeted. Those users have got admin all the time. I can get admin access. I can get root access to that device. If I can get on, I can then jump from one Mac to the other. I can go and do something malicious on the next one. So it's important to think about that as a whole thing. But again, it's not just necessarily a Mac problem, which was the whole point here. This is the slide I cheated on because I put how and when on the same slide, which is good because it means I don't have too many slides left if anyone's keeping track. So what I wanted to do is, it is something that we spoke a lot about, and it's actually, well, how do I start? If I'm not doing it today, or maybe I am doing it and I want to make it better, how do we start? Well, actually, first thing to start with is key drivers. Who's driving this? Is it my InfoSec team? Is it my security team? Am I being pushed for compliance? And I probably don't have every single thing on here, so don't hold me up on that. Or maybe I just want to. I've been to London Apple Admins. There's a person that stood up on stage and made it sound really, really good, and maybe it's something that I want to implement. There are reasons to start that because people just think actually that's a really good idea. But ultimately, you'll be back down to compliance and security, really, in terms of that. So it's best to understand those, right? Because if you understand your compliance requirements, you're understanding within the framework on how you need to implement it, the systems that are going to be affected, and how you need to manage that moving forward. And then the users, obviously, that are involved as well. Principle of least privilege. So this is, again, kind of an interesting thought. So this is a conversation that I have quite often. People often go, what does everybody else do? Does everyone give everybody admin access on devices? Does everyone just give everybody a privileged access management solution so they can just be an admin on their devices and they can request that and I can monitor that whenever they want? Or do people pick and choose? By pick and choose, meaning, do they get the So it's not deciding that, having conversations with people in the business to decide who it is that need access. And again, it's probably not necessarily the way to start. We see a lot of organizations give it out today. Most careful around it, have serious solutions around that to do what they need to make them feel comfortable. But I would say more often than not that you get principal privileges that people get it who need it, essentially. Because, from Apple's standpoint, there are people that genuinely do need admin access and to do their jobs. As you probably have yourselves, right? And then, principal least privileges as well. Do you implement how we implement a personal for that? Actually, have access, how can I limit their access? How can I stop them from having things that I don't want them to touch? Everyone knows like a script down to a device to certain actions every time someone logged in, or every 30 minutes or whatever. can we protect those from our developers? Because developers love to tinker. And they love to mess around with stuff that maybe they go, well, no, Max, no, this is the reason why. And then they go try and remove it. And you're like, no, I need that there. And you're going to then start to worry about that. So can we protect them whilst they are admin, so we know these devices still remain secure as well? And then once we start to understand all that, well, actually, from a solution perspective, this is where you start to think, well, actually, okay, yeah, I know my users, I know key drivers, I'm ready to start to look at solutions. So we'll do those two things first. Solution is always that, because then it makes you finding a solution a lot easier. So around solutions, can you monitor who's using it? Very straightforward. If I'm giving people a solution, I'll probably want to monitor who's using it. If they're not using it, probably going to take it away, right? Because if they've not used it in 6 months, they don't need it for you. That's pretty fair assumption. Visibility into users' actions. Do I want to see what people have installed? Do I want to see what actions people have specifically taken? Again, so you can make informed decisions about whether people need it. Does it fit my compliance requirements? We've kind of already spoken about that, but that's a nice one. And then is the user experience positive? Bit of a mistake in a lot of solutions that I think that we can look at. You know, at the end of the day, we're implementing a solution for Mac. It's our end users that are using it. We don't want them to come back to us and go, this solution you've implemented is horrible. It doesn't really work. It's being my job. And they get the manager involved and they're coming and have an argument with you as well. And we want it to be a really positive experience along the way. And that's really important. I think they're hand in hand really with the security side of that as well. Making sure that the developers that are ultimately being paid to do what they want to do. I'm kind of picking on developers there. Bob just looks at me and I think he's going to hit me in the head. Take me outside, bash me over the head. So if anyone doesn't see me tomorrow, it was Bob. So, making sure that they can do the job that they need to do. They're being paid money to do a specific job. We don't want to hinder that too much. So then we go on to who, which is the last slide anyone is looking at as well. So I've labeled out a couple of different solutions. I'm being agnostic as possible. Obviously, I'm completely biased, but I didn't want to be biased in the room. There are solutions that work slightly differently within this user space. So safety 101. Which actually, the more I started to think about this, the more it started to make sense to me, is that actually, when people do go to request admin, we want that handle to be hot, right? You don't really want them to touch it. You only want them to touch it if they need to get out, they need to do that job. So you can start to sort of, I do think about these memes occasionally. So we do have ours, obviously, from a Jigsaw perspective. We kind of made one from a Mac admin's perspective, and it's on GitHub for people to go download and use today. SAP have theirs. They just launched version 2 today, I think, or yesterday or last night. So if anyone is using that, definitely go on straight onto version 2 because it's going to be a lot better. I think they've put a lot of work into that. Again, that is on GitHub as well. So you've got focused to a primary user account focused solution. Admin by request. That is a solution. So I've kind of chosen solutions that I see a lot, right? So admin by request I see quite a lot. And this is, again, a more of a controversial topic about someone's going to be admin. I want them to request it. And I want to be able to approve those requests as and when. There's different opinions about this. And I've got my opinion. And other people have their opinion about it. My opinion is, sharing my opinion. It's going to be scary vibes. Requesting is a little bit weird. Because if a developer requests something, writes a whole load of jargon I don't understand, I'm probably just going to click approve. I'm probably just going to approve it anyway. So it doesn't really work too much for me because I'm like, who is approving those? If you've got someone approving those that knows that job inside out, knows what they're doing, knows why they're requesting it, they type something in saying why they need it. And then also, what do you do about if the person that's approving them isn't there at that time? These people might have left their desk and they need it there and then. And there's a whole load of flaws, but there's also a whole lot of pros to that as well. Jamf have a solution built as Jamf Connect. So if you're already a Jamf Connect customer, you can start to use an identity-driven privilege access management solution as well, which is really nice little add-on for Jamf Connect. And then Beyond Trust is another big one that we see. Again, more enterprise-grade privilege access management, more focused around zero trust, and then building into the wider sort of Beyond Trust sort of process. So there's a lot of solutions out there from a Mac perspective that you can start to go and look at. But again, when you start to look at solutions, make sure you've done understanding what you need before you go and have a conversation with different vendors as well, because it help make you more informed decision and help make a more informed choice, and then you get the best out of that particular vendor as well, because you can ask better questions, what works, what doesn't work for you, and things like that. That is the end of my office memes. So with a nice splash. Cool. Sorry, I'm just going to say, does anyone got any questions? All good. All good.
Cool, sweet.
Cool.
James, you got some interesting things to talk to us about.
Oh, thank you. I think hey. Let's see. Up we go. We go. We are a go, people. Thank you for taking your hard-earned time to listen to me this evening. I really appreciate it. I'm squeezed in between two reasonably technical talks tonight, so actually it makes me sort of a little bit less worried about the fact that I'm going to be slightly more Mac adjacent in my talk this evening. I have been sort of talking about Mac stuff for quite a few years, but throughout my career, I've sort of slightly moved away from the cold face of actually managing day-to-day Macs. And a large part of my job, I describe it as delighting and enabling users, right? And so I'm trying to impart in some of you guys where this is going to be important, right? That there are things that you can do in your roles as maybe more generalist IT managers, maybe not just Mac managers, that hopefully I can inspire and give something for you to start thinking about. So I'm a massive, massive fan of home automation technology and products in general. I kind of picked this up many, many years ago from Charles Edge when we were back presenting probably the best part of 15 years ago. And he one time got up on stage and presented his new home automation app and turned his living room lights off live on stage from Sweden back to Minnesota. And as he did this, within 5 seconds, he got another text message from the wife. And that stayed with me forevermore. And technology has moved on a lot. So I just want to sort of give you a little bit of a primer and hopefully something that will sort of get some inspirational juices flowing as we go through this. So as I've said, I am me, I am James. Some of you may have seen me around before. I've been in sort of the Mac sort of ecosphere and adjacent ecospheres for 28 years now, which is really hard thing to say. And yes, the grey hair probably tells a story there. An uninteresting fact, I was there 4 rows back from Steve Jobs as he confused the crowd saying, is it an internet connected device? Is it a communications device? And yeah, everyone got blown away. I was there. I was delivering talks on 2-factor authentication, wowing crowds even back then. So yeah, and I looked it up, and the last time I actually spoke at one of these events was 6.5 years ago. I've been in my current job just about 6 years. And following my last talk, someone come up to me afterwards and offered me my current job. So I'm not saying that's what I'm looking for this evening, but it's more of a national lottery. It could be you, right? So yeah, if you want to get involved in this community, there is plenty of value that you can get from sitting that side or standing this side. So feel brave, take that pill, make that leap. So my role is at iwoca. It's a role I've had, like I say, 6 years. and it's a role that's definitely changed. When I got there at iwoca, there was about 85 people in a little ramshackle office, and it was just about keeping the lights on from an IT perspective. We are now one office in London, one office in Leeds, 2 offices in Germany, and an outsourced team in India with 2 offices. And we're knocking on the door of 500 people, excluding the outsource. So as you can imagine, in that time, heading up IT has changed an awful lot. What does iwoca do? We basically give people business loans. Okay, now people might go, oh, he has a lot of security on his plate, but we only do business to business loans, and we're quite lucky in that respect that all of the sort of heavy lifting from a compliance perspective is about protecting the consumer in financial transactions. So I'm very, very privileged that I managed to do a lot with quite a lean team at iwoca. So, but that's what we do. So, right. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about sort of a general overview on how you can potentially take on board what's happened in the last 10 years of home automation technology and see how we could bring that into use in an office scenario. So yeah, let's get started on this journey. Starting with the sort of what are we doing to coordinate everything here? Because that's going to be the hub of our system. And by far the most popular system on the market is called Home Assistant. It's an open source solution. It will basically work on any hardware that you wish to put it on. A lot of people put them on Raspberry Pis, which you can do, and I fully recommend for a testing platform. But there are caveats that you want to keep around thinking about. If you're using it for an office scenario, you really do want to be thinking about availability of the service. So yes, you can use a Raspberry Pi, but put an SSD in it and make sure it's got good power supply and a case on it, not just sitting there dangling in the server cabinet off of the Ethernet cable or whatever. Apart from it being incredibly popular, the good thing about it from a potential business perspective is that it's geared around being private and entirely local data. And in fact, sort of 95% of everything that you can set up with this will still continue to work even without an internet connection. So again, that's something that's quite attractive to a lot of people. And in terms of what it will hook into and connect with, I did check today, and there was just shy of 3,000 integrations. And that's integrations. That's not products. That's integrations, be that manufacturer specific or sort of a type of device. I mean, as we all know, commodity hardware. Yeah, there's tens of thousands of things that you can hook into this. So if you're going to put it in your office, you know, maybe let's not think about hanging it just directly off the same LAN that you've got all of your clients on. You know, I think most of us here would be familiar with sort of office LAN segmentation and VLANs, and I would certainly recommend you start looking at that. It's not something you necessarily want the great and gifted in your office having a poke at when they're bored on a lunch, and it isn't a hardened commercial product. So therefore, you might need to do more of the heavy lifting in terms of, you know, firewall setup and configuration specifically for this product, right? And you also need to think about who and where and why you might want to be connecting to this. So there are some solutions out there that you can either put together yourself in terms of proxy and connections inbound. One thing to consider is a paid proxy service by the people that actually run the project overall. It costs a couple of quid a month, but for my money, that helps support the project overall, which I find is very helpful. And that will mean that if you're using sort of mobile connectivity to administer your products around your office, then it's going to be seamless for you. You know, you're not going to be having to fire up a VPN client if you're outside and you just want to check that all the lights are off or something like that. So obviously the server is going to be wanted to be connected to your individual sort of endpoint devices. And by this, I'm talking about sort of sensors or switches or relays or, you know, Wi-Fi amps, Apple TVs, you name it, you can integrate it into this. But there are going to be some connectivity considerations around a product may want to connect via Wi-Fi. Now, most things do still only in sort of IoT land only work on 2.4 gigahertz. So you may or may not have moved your standard connectivity in the office onto 5 gigahertz. And if you're not thinking about that, that's probably another talk for another day. Bluetooth. Now that's great, but it's only good for sort of 10 meters in clear sight. And then there are a lot of home tech which works on what's called Zigbee, and you may not have heard of that at all. So I'll just sort of expand on those for a bit. For Bluetooth specifically, there is a great solution that will allow you to basically put a Bluetooth device way from your server, which hopefully is sitting in a nice secured cabinet somewhere. And these are little microprocessors, generally or colloquially referred to as ESP32s, and literally in 2 lines of code, the very bottom line basically makes it a Bluetooth proxy. And what that means, it will listen to Bluetooth broadcast beacons, and it will actually then relay those directly back over Wi-Fi to the server. So if you've got a temperature monitor, you could have one in every meeting room. All right, and that's going to cost you threepenny bit to have full office coverage of every meeting room's temperature at a given time. The ESP32s only require USB power, and they cost about £8. So I actually have one of these in my bedroom to tell me how hot the bedroom is in case the wife has been pre-warming it, which I absolutely can't stand because I need to get into a cool bed at night. The other point is the Zigbee, which I said you may never have heard of. It's a great protocol, which is it's based in a similar radio frequency to 2.4. So again, you really want to get into this, you might need to start thinking about what channels are currently going to be best for you to utilize it on. You can get into that. But what we can do for this is we can have, again, a remote coordinator, as they call it, which means you can then sort of start your mesh in a much more suitable place rather than having a dongle attached via USB on the server. The Zigbee protocol works with the various products. You either get an endpoint device, a router device, or a coordinator. So the coordinator is that there pictured. Router devices tend to be things like plugs that you put in a socket, or a wall socket for a light switch if it's got a neutral wire. And I should say that anybody that hasn't got permission to start putting stuff on the network or permission to work in their company on any sort of electrical device, please don't do it without permission. As a head of security, I probably should have started with that. So what can we do now that we've put something in like this? Basically, you can almost do anything, but I want to sort of start giving you some ideas around what might work. In our organization, sort of carbon footprint has suddenly become a big thing, ESG goals. I can actually, if I plug in enough devices and sort of power monitoring sockets, I can actually start to affect change, not by just making sure that when everyone goes home, stuff gets turned off and turned on automatically in the morning. I can actually work out and give them a power cost saving and carbon footprint saving. That's been a real great thing that I was able to deliver to the company. We can have all sorts of relays. You don't necessarily need to have a smart product. If you use a relay and you've got anyone that's sort of swift with electronics, you can make anything smart out there. I've got an oil rad in my shed quarters at home, where I work from home, and that's not a smart thing. And because it's a heating rad, you have to be careful with the electrical loadings. So I've got a nice beefy relay that turns on and off, and I can basically have automated heating in my shed, which is wonderful. So apart from actually just turning sockets on and off, power monitoring and consumption is something that you can bring into dashboards. And this is all built-in functionality. All right, it has built-in dashboards. You also can get wire clamps, which you can actually put on mains feeds, which can actually read how much electricity is going through them. Environmental meeting rooms, great opportunity for some of this. Temperature, humidity, weather, how that affects it. Air pollution and quality, CO2, smart buildings regulation is great, but if you're living in an office which isn't exactly modern, again, it's about giving actionable information to either the facilities management or your users, empower them to know when they should know to open the window. CO2 is proven to lower cognitive function. Smart tech for smart decisions. That's what I labeled it in our place. Server rooms. If you want to do some cheap environmental monitoring in server rooms, this is great. I mean, it's going to cost you like 15 quid when, if you need to go buy it from a well-known sort of server room monitoring company, you're going to be into the many hundreds. Physical office. I mean, having the office manager know that there are windows or doors left open when she's leaving, that can be really handy for her. Another really good sort of reasonably new advancement. We all know about office PIR sensors. You can be sitting there at your computer and all the lights go off. You can now get millimeter wave sensors, which will pick up presence of someone in a room just breathing. So that is really, really powerful. So imagine, for instance, you had your meeting rooms, you could tie in your Google calendars, and then if after 10 minutes in a meeting room from a meeting starting, there's been no activity in the room, clears the calendar event. These are all sorts of things that we're implementing in our place, that have got sort of real sort of quality of life improvements, but I've not actually had to touch any existing infrastructure within the building. So it's all light touch. Yeah. The other stuff, printers. We all love printers. We all love printers. So we can integrate the printers into it. It's all supported. And what it'll do is it'll give you a lovely dashboard out the box that you can see every printer in your organization and the toner levels and paper levels in most instances as well. So yeah, people can walk up and just see whether a printer is online or ready to accept job. I'm not saying these things can't be done in other ways, but it's definitely the easiest way and most user approachable I've found. And media control. We have a lot of speakers around the office, and we've integrated those so that when we set like a town hall up, it'll automatically stop all the speakers with whatever music preference someone's put on, or Spotify endpoints. These are all controllable directly in here. Yeah, there's an awful lot we can do there. Apple TVs directly integrate into this, allowing you to show, in fact, what's actually showing on, or what app is on being used on an Apple TV. So how do we sort of get people to interact with these? It's called dashboards within the system, and it's an incredibly sort of flexible approach to dashboards, not only in look and feel, but what's actually shown, and how much interactivity you have. There is actually a decent sort of role-based model to permissions. So you're not necessarily sort of, if you were to give a tablet out connected to the web interface for a particular dashboard, you wouldn't necessarily be giving out control of everything within your organization, which I know could be an issue, but that might, for instance, pause and start speakers in the kitchen. on the Spotify endpoint that's broadcasting there. There are apps which you can administer and or work with the dashboards available for all the systems. Like I say, it's not necessarily to use the apps, but if you do install an app, it can give you additional telemetry from the end device that's on there. Now, I'm not saying it's going to replace any MDM system, but you can pick out sort of applications that are in use. Battery sort of conditions, battery states of charge, and it will also allow to trigger notifications and push notifications to the devices. That was to wake you up, that slide. Okay, a big thing for me is that many people will not necessarily consider enough their end users when they look at automations. The user experience of automations is going to make or break anything you try and put out there. Even if they're not sort of physically involved in pressing a button, they may well be involved in an automation triggered off them literally walking into a room. So we need to be careful that they've got a full understanding of what's happening. And likely, if something fails, we need to have a fallback. There is no point in automating the world if they're left, shouting at you because something hasn't happened that should have happened, and they then have no way to rectify it. And likewise, pulling the rug from under your users' feet by changing something in their environment is not particularly to be encouraged, shall we say. Lights, in particular, can be very, very difficult. If you imagine that you've got various points in, if you consider doing automated lighting, you have a switch on the wall and you have the bulb. And if you think, oh, well, I'll take the shortcut here, we'll put a smart bulb in or a smart set of lighting. And the problem is someone walks in and turns it off the switch and you're like, oh. So yeah, lighting can be. You can get around it. I would always say that in lighting, put the smarts at the control, not at the bulb. And you will get a much, much better experience. And then your automations are always, you can introduce lots of inconsistencies, like if the bulb is switched off in some other way in a relay, and then the switch isn't in the same place. And then they might have to turn the switch off and then switch it back on to get the bulb back on. And yeah, those sorts of inconsistencies might not seem much to you when you're actually sort of developing what you're trying to achieve, but to the end user, oh my God, it's mind-blowing in most instances. So yeah, just anything where there is actual physical interaction on your automation, just work it through thoroughly and get real user acceptance. Okay. Any questions? Like I say, this was a starting point. I can come back and give you some more solids and some real sort of funky and exciting sort of devices that you can plug into stuff. But yeah.
Are you going to cover home use?
Home use examples. I can cover home use examples all day. I was trying to step it out of the home use. So in my house at home, well, not in my house, the wife makes me keep it light touch in the house. But my work from home is in fact I can probably can we go live demo? Whoa. Here we go. Right, so this is the shed quarters which I work from at home. And so I mean, it's a nice shed. I mean, it has more than a few bikes in the shed. If anybody has actually sort of seen me on my work from home camera, but so it's nicely carpeted, it's insulated, in the roof and double walled. But I work down there all the time when I work from home, so I need to make sure it's an environment that works for me. So we have heating set up in the shed. We have an oil rad and we have a relay, and we have temperature monitoring, and so that we can actually create a thermostatic control, as you see here, and I can turn the heating on. Turn the heating on, and it gives me where the temperature is and where we're trying to get to. Now, that's not a traditional thermostat. That's actually doing sort of some maths in the background, but it will then control the relay on the oil radiator when it gets up to temperature. And then we have a millimeter wave presence sensor, which is telling me there's no one in there at the moment, and it will turn on my lighting. So when I walk in the door in the morning, everything comes to life. It's kind of wonderful. And I have separate sleep timers for when I've left, so that the monitor and the desk electrics stay on longer to keep the laptop charged, and the lights turn off.
The old Mac starter ones as well.
Oh yes, yeah, and we can even take in security feeds and stuff like that. So, oh yes. So the schedule here, my heat alarm, as I call it, is basically an adjustable alarm for when the heating should come on in the morning.
So on that point,
Yep.
the radiator that you've got, you say it's an oil based.
Mhm.
What is the interface? Like how is it?
So literally 3-pin plug into in my case it's a Shelly PM1, which is like a 32 amp relay with Wi-Fi built into it, which then integrates into here.
What's the temperature? Is that doing?
No, so the temperature is another sensor.
Yeah.
Which technically is a Bluetooth sensor.
Right.
Which then is brought in here, and actually this 20 degrees is being taken from a separate Bluetooth sensor. So this is what I'm saying. You don't need everything integrated. You can actually do the smarts in the back end on the automations.
Actually, yeah, the Bluetooth sensor.
Well, just like of AliExpress, you go an Exomi like £4 Bluetooth temperature sensor. It will then, like using an ESP32, it will pick up on the Bluetooth broadcasts of the temperature and then send that to the Raspberry Pi, which is back in the house. Yeah.
How quickly can you get a text from your wife?
Test it.
Very. Yeah. Well, I told you that here's it's currently a comfortable 18.7 degrees in the bedroom, and you notice I even have color bars to slightly guide the wife here at this point.
Does she have access to that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yeah. She is always running in privileged mode. That's all I'm going to say on them. So yeah. There are a whole heap of things I get into. I mean, you can run a Grafana interface on here for time series if you wish. You know, so that sort of stuff's all really, really, really good. Sorry.
Don't forget to turn off your heater. It's
not on, don't worry. Oh yes, it is on. Right. And yes. Actually, I have a fail safe every hour after 6 o'clock. But if I've turned it back on, it turns itself off. So yeah. And I can have like a warm up threshold in the morning. So if the temperature is sort of already over a certain, it's kind of handy in spring, especially if I know it's going to be getting warm, it won't turn on. Wow, I didn't realize this was going to be such a hot Q&A.
Can't catch you after
Yeah.
this because I've got a few questions. But are you aware of any thermostatic Zigbee enabled radiator valves?
So yes, there are several. One company that does them is Shelly. Yeah, Akara.
Presumably those will battery will help.
Yes.
And then enable Zigbee's
so Shelly stuff largely works off Wi-Fi, funnily enough, but there are thermostatic TRVs, thermostatic radiator valves, which work off Zigbee and stuff like that. Yes.
What's the name, sorry?
Shelly. Yeah.
Are you just the dashboard screen used in the office? You just moving iPads to the single app mode?
You can do, yes, you can do that. Yeah, gluing, yeah. I mean, there are loads of different kinds of dashboards. I don't tend to get involved too much in them making it pretty, as long as it works is my thing, really. Yeah, I mean, but you can even sort of trigger once you've got an app installed. The heating will turn off in my shed if, like, I've decided, oh shit, I've got to go into the office. As soon as I'm 2 kilometers away from the house, the heating in the shed turns off. So you can sort of build in quite sort of if this then that, and you know, ands and ors in your automations. So yeah. So I have a few Zigbee devices, mainly light switches and stuff. Much to my daughter's delight, I can her bedroom light is now sort of addressable via, and you can selectively on a device by device basis import it into Amazon Alexa sort of ecosystem, so she can now turn off her bedroom light or turn it on via her children mode Alexa. So yeah.
Have you tried any automations in monitoring the electrical current?
No, not in actually measurement of current. It wasn't something that was. We've got some stuff going on at work because we've got some quite large quite a large number of screens. So I'm interested to get a baseline of what they're using from an electrical current standpoint. And then if we implement various regimes and turning them off, what effect that is on the carbon footprint, right? That's not that I'm interested in that, but that, you know, that there are reports that go up to the directors and external investors on carbon footprint. So it's, you know, it's a hot topic.
Is there anything you're particularly missing that you want added into this automation?
Oh, this automation, no, what do I want? So a big thing, which is really getting into the weeds, is like older British electrics around the house, right? You only have 2 wires in the back of the plug. So it's like a looping live rather than a switched with a neutral wire. That means that you can't have plugs which require any real sort of power draw in your walls. And that means I'm struggling to find a light switch will work in what they call decoupled mode, i.e. the relay will stay on, but the button press will turn off a smart light in the ceiling. That's where I need to get to, because like I say, there's no point having a smart light in your ceiling if the wife walks in and wants to turn it on and off of the wall. So, or any other family member.
Well, that's pressure. Okay. Right. So I'm not as brave as Liam. I am not putting my can of beverage this close to my work laptop. Cool. So hi everyone. Oh, Matt, it's fine. They're all having more fun in the kitchen. It's fine. I'm also feeling a bit robbed because I was told that, you know, this is technical, but James's wouldn't be technical. And the dashboard and like a magic oil heater in a shed. I'm not sure I've got that level of exciting technical, but we can have a go. So hi, for those who don't know me, I'm Steve. I'm one of the London Apple admins, believe it or not. Pronounce he, him. I am I'm just a middle-aged, I'm in my mid-40s, white man with short hair, scruffy greying beard, and glasses with sort of darkish blue-black frames. And I'm here to talk to you about everything old is new again. OpenCore Legacy Patcher for fun and profit, which has turned into some weird sort of meme. We just seem to put fun and profit in everything. And ultimately, this is all Tom Bridges' fault. I mean, not everything is Tom Bridges' fault, but I was listening to the podcast the other day, and they were talking about pitching ideas for meetups and conferences, and how, you know, put an idea together, and then you can do the research and get deep down the rabbit hole and learn how it works. And maybe I didn't want to know. Thanks, Tom. But anyway, so let's start. Let's go back. We'll start from the year 1999. So it was 1999. Prince was very concerned about us partying for some reason. The Millennium Bug was coming. And you know, and Apple launched this thing. So let's see if the audio works. Ooh. Oh, that's quite tumultuous.
It's not only the world's most powerful personal computer. It's also the most open-minded. Presenting the all-new Power Macintosh G3.
So that may confuse some of you. That was opening the side where you could put components in and take them out. No. Okay, fine. No, exactly. So this is one of my favorite Apple machines ever, which is a really embarrassing or nerdy thing to admit, but I guess I'm with friends. So it was the most powerful. The design language, you know, mirrored on from the iMac the year before. Looking to the future, faster than you could buy, but it still had ADV ports, so you could still, you know, do an Apple Talk network or plug in your really clicky keyboard. So yeah, genuinely one of my favorite Macs. The 1999 state of the art, running Mac OS 8.5. And then in 2005, someone dumped one on the loading bay out of the back of the chemistry department near where I worked. I worked at Imperial College, and someone had dumped one. So 1999, state of the art, 2005, junk. And a colleague of mine was out for a fag, and he spotted it, and we wombled it back to the office. And again, you know, you saw that case, you could open it. So we were able to max out the RAM. Yeah, we could RAID Pentium 3s and Pentium 4s. We maxed out to 640 megs of RAM, banged a, you know, a 40 gig drive in it. And we could upgrade that Mac from all the way from Mac OS 8.5. We could run OS 10 Tiger. And this was exciting to me because at the time I bought my own Mac, because thanks Imperial College, but I needed a test system. I didn't want to, you know, run random scripts and stuff on my machine. I wanted a test system. And so we had this fantastic, awesome Mac, 6 odd years old, running Mac OS pretty well. It was a nice bit of kit. Whisper it, I still have it. 2024, we'll just leap forward 20 odd years. So have I learned my lesson? Am I still messing around with crap that should be in the bin? I might be, yeah. So this is a screenshot. I'm not sure this won't come out on the live stream. This is a screenshot of the system profile from my 2008 iMac. So again, this is back to my old employer. Imperial College bought this for me. When I left, I offered to buy it. I took it home and I used it at home for a bit. So yeah, so this is it running Sonoma 14.7.1. And this is me putting together today's slide deck on it. So thing is, that Mac, support for that Mac ended with what? OS 10 El Capitan, I think. I didn't know that. I had to go and look it up. They're a thing. And I'd never really thought, why do Macs stop being supported? So I guess there was that whole switch from 32 to 64-bit when a whole bunch of systems were no longer supported. So I'm like, yeah, it's deep, complicated, down the, you know, it's highly techie stuff. See, James promised you like techie stuff. You know, it's really complicated, and I don't really get it. That just, yeah, Apple say buy a new one, we'll buy a new one. But it turns out it's mostly just the lack of driver support. So Apple, like, we don't want to write a Wi-Fi chipset driver for that model anymore. Or a big focus is graphics. You know, the graphics drivers, they want metal, they want cool new things, and there's no longer support for the graphics card. So there you go. But it turns out if someone else, Apple doesn't want it, if someone else could write drivers for the missing hardware, then can't we just keep using our old Macs for a little bit longer? But the thing is, so someone writes the drivers, that's cool, but we've still got to get those community provided drivers actually installed on our Macs. And how do you do that? Well, that's when we get to talk about OpenCore. So then, what is OpenCore? So OpenCore is when the Apple people still here, they are going to, okay. So OpenCore is when we're tiptoeing dangerously close to the exciting world of Hackintoshes. So OpenCore is a bootloader project, and it's designed so that you can run macOS on all sorts of stuff. Maybe even James's Heathrow iMac. Like you can run it on almost anything. So the idea is it's a bootloader, but it also includes the ability to patch and install additional drivers into memory at boot time. So the idea is, I think previous ways of hacking your Mac to run your OSs involved messing with the OS. And every time a patch came out, it shrugged off the changes and nothing worked. This time, the changes are made in RAM, so everything's in memory, so the OS stays effectively unmolested, and that's what allows you to boot. But, you know, they're dragons. So Hackintoshes. Also, though, what we're going to talk about, wait, we're not talking about Hackintosh, we're talking about OpenCore Legacy Patcher. So hang on, what's the difference? So I think it's another one of those examples where Apple just makes everything that little bit easier. So because there's a smaller number of supported platforms, so one of the challenges with OpenCore is there's an awful lot of PCs out there, an awful lot of different bits of hardware and stuff like that. And to get a working OpenCore setup is really hard. And then what people were doing is when they found a working setup for a particular model or whatever, they were sharing them online. So what OpenCore does is, because we've got a bunch of supported Mac models, it's just a nice UI for you to generate standard OpenCore files for a bunch of supported Macs. So just everything is much, much, much easier. So yeah, sorry, I skipped that. But it's just a great big easy button. So someone like me even I can get an old Mac running the latest versions of Mac OS. So yeah, it's kind of like Hackintoshing a Macintosh. Like it. You know, I am not a lawyer. I have sent it to iCloud, though. So Apple do know I'm doing this. Sorry, Tim. So anyway, so that's enough sort of theory. I figured we could talk about some of the fun times I've had. Oh, God, why is it? Wow.
They're coming for you.
OpenCore is awful and none of you should use it. Anyway, so this is where we started. So here is the iMac in question. So so it still had its 320 gig spinning Rust drive. And to be honest, I've never taken one to pieces. We'll get to that. It's not a lot of fun. So I figured as a proof of concept, I'd just stick an SSD in a USB caddy over USB 1.1, and we'd install the thing, you know, on an external drive. So OpenCore has a nice UI, so you can generate a USB stick. So the USB stick is tailored to your model. So you've got the bootloader, you've got the drivers for your particular model, in my case, an iMac 8.1, and you've got your installer, the OS you've chosen. I initially tried, I mean, I did all this last year. So I initially tried Ventura. Didn't work. I have no idea why it didn't work. But bizarrely installing Monterey, and then once I was on Monterey, then using OpenCore again to upgrade to Ventura, worked great. More recently, I've gone to Sonoma, works great. But, you know, I'm sure you can imagine how well it performed on a USB caddy. You know, it was great. But the thing is, a fantastic proof of concept. So I could see, right, so the Wi-Fi drivers work, the sound, it functions, the graphics are okay. So it's time to roll up the sleeves and actually do the needful. So here we go. If you ever take one of these to pieces before, don't. You'll notice I've got the little sucker thing, this sucker. Anyway, so, and everyone says, yeah, the screen, it's held on with magnets. Yeah, magnets and double-sided tape. No one told me about the tape, and the screen is flexing, and anyway, I didn't break anything. We've got an SSD fitted, we're booting up. Listen to De La Soul is Dead. Thing runs okay. Like, it takes a little while to boot, but once you're in, you know, you can web surf, you can YouTube, you can do things. It's a surprisingly usable computer. And then in terms of living with an OpenCore system day in, day out, again, the OpenCore team have tried to make everything as easy as possible. So they leave a little background process running. So if you hit the button to try to do an upgrade, hey, you're doing an upgrade. Let me go grab the latest patches for you. I'll do that whilst you're downloading a full 14 gig installer reasons. And I'll get them ready for you. And then on reboot, prompts you to walk through reinstalling all the patches, reboots you. It is almost easy enough to give to your dad whose laptop, whose iMac is out of date, but not quite, because someone would have to support it. And as an example, it's basically it's USB drivers, it's sound, it's graphics, it's stuff. So not an awful lot of stuff, but I find myself then with a 2008 machine that was out of support 10 years ago running N-1. I mean, N-1 is a security hole, right? But you know. So that's kind of my OpenCore story. So should you do this? I think it all depends what you're trying to achieve. So from my perspective, works really well. I mean, I put together a bunch of my Macaduck slides on the damn thing. you know, like it works. It'll do Zoom. I can get on Zoom calls. So the whole thing is incredibly usable, provided you don't step outside the boundaries of using it like a glorified Chromebook. Loads of the Apple apps don't work because they're expecting metal, and you get weird glitches and things. But broadly speaking, the thing's pretty solid, pretty slow, plays tunes. It's fantastic. And ultimately, I built it for my kid to do his homework on, and he is loving it. Should you do this in production? Jesus God, no, no, do not do this. Run away screaming. No, do not even think about it. Am I covered yet? Sorry, Tim. Coder. So, like I say, this is sitting on a desk at home, and I'm using it, a bit of surfing, bit of stuff. For my sins, I edit a motorcycle magazine, a club magazine, and I'm using this crappy old DTP package, and it works fine. And I've been using it on my OpenCore Mac. I've done a couple of magazines. Everything's been great. The November-December edition, which hasn't arrived yet. So my Mac ate the magazine. You know, I got to this final stage. I'm exporting to PDF. Gone. That's 3 days of work down. Right, fine. Recover from backup. Start again. Get all the way to the end. Hit export. Gone. And the penny finally dropped. Let me open this on an M1. Oh, it was fine. Oh dear. Oh dear. Maybe I should stick to the Chrome and the things and the stuff. But not horrendous. Also, screw it. Yeah, fine. I actually did go and do after all this yesterday. But I still made the slides on my iMac. Anyway, thank you for my talk. I'm not going. Okay. Ooh.
Mr. Macintosh put up a lot of really good videos.
He does. I was actually, I forgot to say, I think I'm not sure where I first heard about OpenCore, and I think it was Mr. Macintosh, because I guess you see his posts around all the downloading of the IPSWs and stuff. And I think it was a mixture of that and the fact that my kid really did need a computer for like his homework and stuff, that maybe dig the thing out from the basement and actually sort it all out. But I think the other thing as well is, don't be like me. The 2008 iMac is about as old as you're going to get away with. I can imagine if you were doing this in a machine that's just dropped off the support list, you might actually have a much better time of it. And it does, as I say, from my perspective, for the lightweight Chrome-based stuff as I do, I'm really, really happy with it. But I've still replaced it with a Mac. I'm feeling bad, actually. I feel bad that I've replaced it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it again for me, it's surprisingly easy to do that all the rough edges have been smoothed out. The UI is nice. It's a really easy process to follow. The hard bits of cracking your iMac and getting an SSD in it, you know what I mean? Like the process itself is easy enough. I mean, I think again, I live in fear of it breaking. Like if the thing went bang tomorrow, I'm not sure I'd necessarily want to jump through the hoops to reinstall it again. But again, like I'm really happy with what I can achieve with it, and feeling kind of bad I will be replacing it in the next few days. That's
Last panel back on how much dust and or hairs and or miscellaneous gunk do you get behind it? As someone who's worked on
I think I did okay, but I'm going to go home now and stare deeply into it. Oh, he's right. He's right. But I definitely did feel lied to though. I was like, yeah, it's just magnets. Oh, this is, and it's flexing and flexing and flexing. No one warns you. All of the YouTube tutorials, no one says, oh, there'll be double-sided tape on this. And I was the owner from you. It's never been in for repair. Put the tape on. I promise you, I'm the one owner from you, never been opened before. Someone put tape on it.
That's what they all say.
Touche, sir. All right, cool.
That's Apple paying back your sins.
Hey, I'm keeping the kit out of landfill and filling valuable minutes of your time where you could be in the pub. Cool. All right then. Thanks, everyone.
We'll say a huge thank you to Jigsaw and Liam for getting us in, sorting everything out. Also, thank you to Liam, Steve, and James, who's there he is, for speaking tonight. It's great to hear from you all. Great presentations. And also, if you haven't already, be sure to grab a little Macaduck money off voucher. Hopefully to see you at the conference this year. If not, then you're lost, I guess. I don't know.
They're alive.
Have a good evening. I'm sure we're going for socials after this, but thank you for coming. Cheers.